Hey guys, what's up? Vincent ADK here. Just a quick intro. This will be the full dev community voice chat from Fresh Vanilla. The project is called Everlook, so you already get a little bit of information there. In the background there will be some WoW content from my buddy SorrowH. Link will be in the description. Same with the official website of this project, and over the next couple of days I will put timestamps in the video, so you guys can jump to specific questions, because this video is, I think, about 1 hour long, so I'm really busy right now, so I hope you understand. But having said that, enjoy the video, and I hope this will answer questions you had. Take care. Bye-bye.
We're going to be starting the Q&A right now. We're going to leave it off to Whitekidney to give a little bit of an announcement, introduction, description, and process of what we're doing behind the scenes. Afterwards, we'll be able to field some questions from people. I'll be reviewing chat to see if there's any questions that pop up and we can talk about them. Otherwise, just use the wave feature to get your question noticed, and then you can ask the devs directly.
Right, everyone, welcome to this first of many upcoming Q&As. Yeah, I guess we can start off by saying welcome to Everlook. As many as you know, we're going to try to achieve something more closely to what some of us previously did on Light's Hope, which is to give people a more challenging vanilla experience. Now, determining what people actually want is going to be somewhat of a challenge, which is why we have decided to host many of these voice chat sessions that we have had previously. We believe it is going to be crucial to the project that we actually do engage with the community and try to identify what people actually want.
Yeah, we'll definitely start off by saying that all the work behind the scenes is an attempt to recreate the most vital pieces of the Light's Hope experience. A lot of people have been asking what that really pertains to. Essentially, the design philosophy is to take the things that were more challenging, the aspects of Light's Hope that people enjoyed that were missing from Classic, and integrate them into the vMango's core, which is the most up-to-date emulation software for Vanilla WoW. Anything that's been changed has been done so in a way that makes the game more challenging without trivializing any content. Any numbers that were increased. Any numbers that would have decreased stay the same, so that it's pretty much just challenging across the board without anything becoming easier. There's no drop rates that have been adjusted yet, but we will be looking into those to ensure that nothing has changed from the classic metas. Same thing with mob pathing, patrols, pack leashing, stuff like that. So you will have the knowledge that you've obtained from the classic experience and the last few vanilla private servers will be applicable here. Some people have been asking whether or not that will change, but we don't plan on changing that. There's a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to try and address them one at a time. If you have a question, ask it in general chat. And anybody who wants to ask a question within the voice chat, just use the wave feature and we'll try and get to that immediately. First question that I do see coming in, layering / dynamic spawns. There will never be layering. We will never use sharding or layering. That's strictly post-vanilla thing that was added. Blizzard did that in Classic. Many players hated it, and it's very abusable. Dynamic respawns will be in the game. That ensures that the fresh experience is best as possible, is most fluid for everyone joining in on the first few weeks without having to suffer too much from slow respawn timers with massive amounts of players in a single area. As to when frequently asked questions are going to be published, we're still getting that together. This dev chat discussion is going to be very vital for that, so that we can kind of formalize everything that we're saying to the community. Right now, everything's still a little bit up in the air because we just announced our project name. Still getting staff together. We have a lot of plans regarding the launch timeline of the server, and a lot of stuff needs to be formalized. So we have a question, how many debuff slots on release? We haven't confirmed, we haven't announced. We're still deciding and discussing as to what's most appropriate. Will there be forums? We don't have a plan on having a forum just yet. That's something that we're still discussing. There's a lot of issues that need to be worked out with forums, particularly in abuse and moderation.
Yeah, I might be able to add on that. We are looking into specifically what software to use. I do believe that we probably would need forums at some point. I do have some different solutions set up that I'm currently looking into. I think that Discord is perhaps it is a great tool for reaching out to players more in real time and stuff like that, but eventually we will need forums in place to have more proper and formalized discussions. So soon TM, that's the official answer for that.
Next question, respec costs. Respec cost will start off low and then progressively increase over time. Again, this is to function as a gold sink. We don't want to punish players in the beginning of the game when there's not much gold to go around and it's very hard to respec. But we do need that function to exist at some point in the game to draw gold out the economy. Next question, Gambleman asks, will Hermes proxy be allowed on the server? No. The resounding answer is no. It needs a lot of development until it's able to really integrate into a project of this size, simply because of anti-cheat mechanics behind it. Divine asks, permanent solution for Worldbuffs? No. Worldbuffs will be the same. We won't be planning on adding anything. It's, again, still up for discussion, but we don't plan on adding any exterior features like Chrono Boon or Worldbuff Vendor, anything like that. Again, this is vanilla WoW. Kind of know how it goes with Worldbuffs. The only difference is we're going to restrict Worldbuffs for X amount of time at the beginning of the tier of content so that players can push the content without having significant advantages that are offered by Worldbuffs. Molten Phoenix asks, what are the team's stance on small changes, e.g. removing the 3 charge limit on manual crowd pummeler? That will never happen. Again, I'm not saying no changes, but yeah, that's a general idea of the server. It's a Lights Hope emulation. We don't plan on changing things outside that framework. Meme Overlord asked, any plans to ensure server pop balance stays within 60-40? That's a player issue, and we want to engage with the community, giving them information that provides better insight as to the population on the server. But the community needs to be responsible for that. If you skew the balance of the server in one way or the other, that's on you, and it's unfortunate if you do that, but you have to understand that for a server to be live and healthy, you need to have good balance between the factions, so we trust that the players can handle that themselves.
And to add on that, there are no good solutions for addressing faction imbalance that are not gonna piss a lot of people off. So that it is crucial that again, that we do engage with the community, keep you updated on things, and keep you involved in the state of the server. Naturally, when it comes to faction imbalance, it is crucial that the community and players understand that there are no quick fixes or good fixes at all to addressing this problem. And hopefully throughout like community engagement, we will be able to address that.
All right, next question. Will boosting be banned? Our official stance on that is that advertising of boosting services is not allowed in public channels. The GMs will watch for that. And we don't want the chat to become like it was in Classic, where it's nothing but spam for services. It makes the game very unplayable for a lot of people. In terms of whether or not you can boost a friend through a dungeon, that's a different story. It's not actionable. It's never been the policy of private servers to take action against people who are boosting friends through dungeons, stuff like that. You know, if you're solo boosting somebody who's a guildie or their alt, that's a totally different story than selling boosting services all day.
We have been discussing not necessarily making adjustments to things, but my personal opinion on this is that there are clearly certain broken boosting mechanics in the game that Blizzard clearly didn't intend to be there. Like, if they had some more time to address that, I believe that would have been fixed. And just to reiterate again, we haven't really made or any decisions on a lot of topics yet, including boosting and like GDKPs and stuff like that. It is important that you guys understand that we are just having open discussions about things right now, and don't take our statements as fact. So yeah, when it comes to boosting, I think we're open to discussing certain aspects of it. But that, again, is something that we need to be very clear and open with the community and getting your feedback on, basically.
Next question that we have here, how will the server be financed? It's being financed out of pocket by the development team. Particularly Whitekidney has offered to pay for hosting costs, and we have a few other people within the staff who are offering to chip in on that. We don't have cash flow, and we don't intend to have cash flow coming from the players. This was addressed the other day in the Q&A that if we were ever to take donations, it would be completely transparent. All donations would be logged and tracked on the website, but for now the plan is to have no cash flow. We'd prefer it that way because it keeps the integrity of the project much higher.
That naturally also includes not having a shop at all.
Yeah, there will never ever be a cash shop, so never worry about that.
No Grover shop.
Danny the Dino asks, will there be progressive itemization like on Northdale? Yes, items will be progressive. They will evolve over time, depending on the patch. As to certain specific niche cases, such as PvP gear, we're going to address that in the most logical way that's best for the players and most enjoyable for the players. But in general, items will be progressive, 1.12 or 1.2 through 1.12, and we have no plans on modifying the general timeline of item progressive itemization. Some things will be addressed again on a specific basis. I think Noggin Fogger is one that people ask often about. We're not going to have that tied to the 2-minute pot cooldown. It's just going to be typical Noggin Fogger. Savory Deviate Delight will be in the post-nerf state. That's just for the sake of the game. Otherwise, the game becomes pretty hard to play for a lot of people. And PvP gear. We have to look at PvP gear when we're going to address when it gets buffed and how we do the buffs, whether or not we buff all the items at once or the weapons first as typical. It's something that we still need to discuss there.
I see there's a lot of people asking about multiboxing. Like we've said before, on a lot of different topics, we're probably going to follow what we did during the Lights Hope days. And if you remember, multiboxing was not allowed on Lights Hope. I think that a majority of the player base think that multiboxing is detrimental to the game itself and the game experience. Again, we have not decided exactly how we're going to address multiboxing yet. Yeah, if we like we've said before, there is no reason to reinvent the wheel, right? So we're probably gonna be following like the Northdale model on a lot of most things.
Yeah, how much servers will we have?
Say that again.
We our plan right now is only to launch one realm. We have not discussed. It's never come up internally to launch more than one realm at this point, and that is naturally to there's a lot of people asking for PvE, for example, and I think that this might probably be the last great fresh for a while. So I think that keeping the community together is going to be vital to the project's longevity, especially when it comes to population numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to touch on that too, again, really, if there's a difference between Northdale and Classic and Vanilla, all three at the same time, the decision is typically made to add or have the feature as whatever is best. We have a lot of people asking if things like Diamond Flask will work like it did in Vanilla. Yes, Diamond Flask will work. You'll be able to screenshot your healing. Another question we have, will there be XP bonuses? No, it's 1x. This is Vanilla. There's no XP boosts. Will the server be progressive, or will all content be unlocked at launch? The server will be progressive. Things like Dire Maul will not be in at launch. We won't have decay on, or I'm sorry, We won't change decay for PvP ranking like they did on Darrowshire. It's in discussion, but we don't have any plans to change decay rates. Just simply because of how the formula works, it's almost impossible to actually address that changing decay rates. It simply just makes... It changes the formula entirely to where it's not really the ranking system that people are used to. People are asking if dynamic respawns in the starting zones for things like interactable quest objects could be reduced. For example, the Benedictus chest in Duratar. We don't have plans on addressing that right now. That's up for discussion, but that's something that's not incorporated within the dynamic spawn system natively. So it's something that we'd have to look at. Chances are I'm just going to say no for now as the general answer. Can we see a faction detection function? Yes, faction numbers will be exposed for the sake of balancing the server. Can we get actual info on used armor values, drop rates, etc. somewhere on the site? Yes, I will have all of the information from the databases that has been updated and changed. Everything that I'm doing is essentially done through SQL scripts and inserts. And I'm custom tailoring, again, those to be only extending the difficulty, not reducing it. Every change will be addressed and adjusted. So far, there's been about 2,500 values changed to replicate Northdale. And we're going to have a few 10,000 more, if not more, that still need to be touched. Early Black Lotus BOP state, we haven't officially decided on that. The general consensus is that we're probably going to have it be tradable from the beginning, but we can always just keep it BOP. I think it's last as BOP up until 1.7, if I recall. That's something that we'll have to address and discuss further, though, between staff. Will fishing schools be added, and when they are, will the release of the different types be staggered? For example, stone scale eel pools being added later to the rest, or will all the schools be added at the same time? That's not something that we've discussed or addressed yet, and chances are it's going to be just progressive standard. So you will have limited release of pools at certain times. That's probably the official way of putting it right now, but we still have to discuss it, so I can't give you a solid determination. Late asks, will the server progress to TBC? No, we have no intention or plans of progressing to the next expansion. Will changes, Narrow Void asks, will changes be made to server events such as Scarab Lord? I'm assuming that he means the AQ gate opening and war effort, adjusted based on the population. That's something that we can look into. We'd have to discuss that, but obviously if there's any type of issues arising around that to where it becomes difficult to open the wall, we can look at it. I will say, though, I don't think that that's going to be the case here. We have definite player numbers who are going to be grinding the war effort. Sky Delure asks, any idea how the phases are going to work? We haven't released a formal timeline yet, so we're not going to make any statements on that. Will China be blocked? Asks Ansu. No, we don't plan on region blocking anybody. We want the server to be enjoyable for everybody. We're, in fact, hopefully setting up some moderation for foreign language channels and players. If you speak any foreign languages and you're a capable, competent person who's not a scumbag, let us know, filling out an application. If you speak a foreign language, it's a huge plus on your application because there's a lot of communities who particularly don't speak English natively in any aspect. Russian, Chinese, and some South American players. So if you speak any of the languages from those regions, definitely put it on the application, let us know. You have to speak English as well yourself, of course, because the staff communicates in English typically. Dizzy asks, what patch will the server be on? 1.2 at launch. Will Maraudon be in at launch? Yes, Maraudon was in at 1.2. At BRD, the Horde have an option to begin the prison break quest to spawn mobs, then drop it within the party to respawn the quest. Yeah, that will be addressed. You won't be able to abuse the BRD quest bug. PTR when? Esperatist. We don't have an official announcement as to when we're going to start doing actual public PTRs. Past few days, we've been just hosting the server core online while we just test and during the voice chats primarily, so people have something to do without getting distracted or bored with other shit outside the game. But as to whether we're going to launch the public PTR within the next few weeks, we haven't decided on the timeline of that, so I'm not going to make a statement. Erlondo asks, will Mobs pathing be stock private server? Yes. Pretty much the sniffs come from Classic, WoW, and the pathfinding and pathing of the mobs is generally the same. Obviously, there's slight differences between the 1.14 and 1.12 client with the map structures themselves that change pathing slightly in some regards, but generally speaking, the experience is going to emulate what you've known for the past couple of years now, so you'll understand the pulls and the leashing of the packs. Thoughts on adding the Thorium Brotherhood earlier, Heart of Fire to 3 Alley Fire Transmute earlier than 1.10. We haven't discussed that yet, so I'm not going to make any statements regarding that. The Sissy Baker asks, if somebody hosts GDKP, what happens? Policy right now is GDKP is forbidden. If you're advertising GDKP runs and trying to find buyers in a public channel, you probably will have action taken against you. Again, though, this is a recap. GDKP is a big problem for the staff to track down gold, and if you are in a GDKP run with somebody who buys gold and you receive money from the pot, action is typically taken against you. That's been policy on Light's Hope and Lightbringer and Northdale, and the past few projects regarding that, just because it's an issue with RMT. So again, we encourage people not to do GDKP. I'm just going to scroll through the chat a little bit here. Will there be any Vanilla Plus elements? Any? No, we don't plan on doing any type of custom changes. Again, things can be addressed on a very case-by-case, nuanced, niche basis. But this project aims to emulate the Light's Hope experience that players are very familiar with. And the only changes that are really being made are to get it to that point. You will never have a custom patch that you have to download, if that's what you're asking. Tradable loot in raids in case of misplacement. Whitekidney addressed this yesterday. It saves the staff a lot of time doing that. We haven't made any type of resolution on that idea, but it's something that we'll have to discuss internally, because it simply saves staff a lot of time with issues dealing with tickets for misplaced loot. What is the name of the project? The name of the project is Everlook. Solid name. We still haven't decided, I believe, the official server name, but that's the name of the project. And that's where the website and all the information will be hosted. We'll have more official links in the next coming days as we finalize everything, but we just finished registering the domain and all the necessary third-party website stuff that we needed.
That is everlook.org, by the way.
Almost asked, multiple accounts, banks, AH alts. Yes, you're allowed to have a bank alt within a major city. It must be in a city with an auction house. How are you? And it can only be used to trade. You cannot gain any type of game advantage outside of just trading and using it as a trade alt. Multiboxing is forbidden on the server. It's been the policy for private servers for quite some time, and that will be here. Kef Tank asks, in Classic there was a method to keep Windsor's Haste buff for BRD for Alliance players in the raids. Blizzard naturally nerfed this interaction, but it's an OG vanilla feature. I don't believe that that's currently within the emulation core. I believe the buff gets wiped when you leave BRD. If there's a bug that lets you keep it, we will address that bug, because we will view it as such. I'm pretty sure, though, that's already default in vMango, so I'd have to take a look at that further. Warchiefs Blessing Horde only buff. DMN melee buff available for Hunters too. Warchiefs Blessing is mind controllable to give to Alliance. That's pretty much always been part of Vanilla. DMN melee buff available for Hunters was a change made in Classic by Blizzard to help people cope. We don't plan on doing that here. Spicer asks, will prolonged griefing, killing NPC quest givers, be bannable? No. We aim to never ban players for doing things that they're able to do within the game naturally. It's been a huge topic of discussion, and again, that's the point of all the discussion, is to ensure that players never have to get banned. We don't want to use any type of exterior or extra systems to stop that. A dumb bro confirmed this the other day that the GMs will be able to handle it. We're going to have appropriate staffing for when there's extreme cases, and mostly to deal with ticket flooding. But other than that, there's really no need, as long as the staff can handle the influx of tickets from players complaining about stuff like that. Knights asks, will Worldbuffs be purgable? Yes, Worldbuffs will be purgable. Man asks how much realms would exist. We plan on doing one realm.
What's on your
project really outlined is to have a nice big population server. We don't want to split that population between multiple realms, but if the need arises for on a technical level to have more than one realm, we will. That's again mostly just to accommodate technical issues with hosting a server that has too many players at once. I don't think that's much of an issue, but we can address that at the time when that comes. They ask if you'll be able to reserve names before launch like Classic and Hyjal did. We'll discuss and we'll look into that. Right now the plan is no. You're just going to pick out your name on the server launch. If there's an issue, I'm sorry, but that's pretty much always been the standard. If it's something that we can discuss though, so I'm just going to say it's up for discussion, but the policy right now is no. Are you going to change the XP values of dungeon mobs? Asks Snail Soup. In private server emulation, the XP values of mobs are radically different to Classic, which used pre-TVC formulas, which were changed. If you're asking if you can dungeon cleave your way to 60, the experience rates are not what they are on Classic, and it's not optimal. It might be optimal if the game world is extremely packed with players. Might just be the most efficient way, but other than that, it's not something that you're going to be getting 300k an hour doing Scarlet Monastery, I can assure you. Lisa asks if we're planning to stick to the original timeline for content release or accelerated version. We plan on doing the general progressive timeline, 1.2 through 1.12. As to how we space that out and the individual things that are released, we can address in a more formal way in the coming weeks when we formalize a timeline. But yes, generally it's going to be the same patch cycle that everybody's familiar with. A Contraband asks, will GMs be moderating guild chat the same as world chat? Again, this is a question that I get asked a lot by people who want to treat the game as 4chan. I personally don't care how you speak in private channels. It's not my concern because it's not disrupting public chat channels. Public chat channels, however, are moderated. They have the same rule set as Discord, and if you're getting banned and timed out constantly on Discord, just think about what's going to happen in game when you're using public channels to talk like the way that you are. So don't. It's that simple. Have a little bit of common sense and decency. Don't spam in world chat. Don't spam in trade chat. Don't spam things that would get you auto-banned or auto-muted on Discord in public channels. Private channels are not policed. We have really no concern to police them unless there's illicit activity that's specifically against the game's terms of service, such as gold selling activity and shit like that. Common sense. Will be NPC for Iron Man Challenge, asks Iranicus. No, we don't plan on adding Iron Man Challenge hardcore. That's more so a player merit system. Some people have asked for it. It's something we can consider and discuss. It doesn't really impact the game in any significant way to have somebody flagged as a hardcore, a system in place to let the game know if they've died to where they can't log back on that tune. But that's something that we don't plan on doing, so I'm just going to say no. We will discuss it further, though. Kozari asks, are we allowed to whisper people who are looking for a group for a dungeon to offer a boost service, not advertise the service, but whisper a particular random person? If it's a case like that, where somebody's looking for a tank for an hour, and you say, hey, I'll come tank it, but you got to give me all the righteous orbs. Like, that's different, obviously. If you're whispering people saying, hey, I'm selling boosting services, that is also different. It depends on our policy. officially when the server launches, so I'm not going to make a determination on whether you're allowed to or not, but just understand that whispering people trying to sell them boosting services will be treated pretty much the same as advertising it. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of people getting whispers from a lot of boosters and people offering boosting services, and that's something that we don't want players to have to experience. It was a big problem in Classic, and we don't want it to be a problem here. Oh, player cap online. There's no hard limit that we're going to set for player cap online. There could be a technical limit for the server software to handle more than 20,000 players, I believe was the estimate of Chaos Vex in terms of optimization for the core. But we've seen servers with more than that online at once, and we've been able to stress test and simulate slightly higher numbers than that without much of an issue. So I'm not going to say that there's a player cap, but it's one of those things where if we have a problem hosting a concurrent amount of players at once because the number is too high, we will consider opening up a second realm. And the second realm would eventually be merged into the main one once the player numbers drop back down to a manageable number. Ray Purchase asks, has a decision been made on the BG release window 1 month after launch? We haven't formalized the decision on the timeline yet, so I'm not going to make an announcement, but yes, Battlegrounds will be in shortly after the launch of the server. They will not be in at the launch of the server. A lot of people generally come to a consensus that it's best to have no Battlegrounds but Honor at launch and add Battlegrounds after without Battle Masters so that you can kind of experience all 3 types of time within the game that were offered during the original vanilla experience. But as to whether or not the timeline is set in stone, no, we still have to internally discuss that, and we'll announce that in a more formal way. Sage Nod asks, can you look at non-game breaking incentives such as aesthetic visual bonus? I'm assuming you're talking about Cash Shop Transmog. That will never be added. That will never be added. I'll tell you that right now.
Where are we gonna host ourselves?
That is probably gonna be Central or Western Europe. But nothing has been decided yet. We will get back to you on that once we know more. I could probably mention the timeline again. Like we have said, we have not decided on a timeline yet. But if people look up the original Northdale timeline, that's probably going to be... the timeline is probably going to be somewhat close to that. During Light's Hope, we did spend a significant amount of time discussing the timeline and things like that. And then, like I've said before, there is no reason to reinvent the wheel. We're probably going to be using that experience that we have and got throughout running Light's Hope and applying a lot of that here. As for a launch date, there's been some fake launch dates spread around every here and there. We have not yet decided on a launch date. A lot of this kind of relies on, like initially we have to identify specifically what types of development efforts that we have to go through with before we get to a polished state of the server. So a formal release date, it's not possible for us to set that yet. We do need to spend some time investigating certain things such as database values and stuff like that, and then actually performing the changes and then testing them so that we know that they work properly.
People asking about unarmored mounts.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think we're probably going to do what we did on Light's Hope. There is no reason for us to keep them out. Like some other projects that do have cash shops, they tend to keep them out and then offer them for sale in their shop. So I think having them in as they were up until that specific patch and then taking them out will be a good idea.
The mic works, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, so there might be some players who can feel left out and alone, who is struggling to find anyone to play with. And then might be, quit playing because there was no added option or easier way for them to, you know, try get someone else who is looking for someone to play with? Is there going to be like any sort of way to get an easier way to communicate with other people trying to get in like a group?
Are you potentially referring to having some sort of looking for group system in place?
Yeah, sort of like say you got no friends and you're looking for people a safe environment to play with other people, right?
From the server side, I do believe that the best thing that we could possibly do is structuring our community, our Discord forums, stuff like that, in a way that encourages people to play together. Implementing something like a dungeon finder or something like that is something that I think a lot of people would have a problem with.
No dungeon looking group thing. Generally thinking about like say you quite literally got no friends.
Yeah, and I think that facilitating people playing together and more social behavior throughout like Discord and something like that, perhaps, you know, via in-game channels, that is probably going to be the most that we can contribute with from the project side without having to implement a lot of custom solutions for. Yeah, just to properly answer your question, we are going to do our best to ensure that like the Discord has the proper channels and the forums eventually when that comes up. But I don't think there's anything more than that we can do without involving or developing like custom features for that specifically. And yeah, I don't know if you have something you want to add to that, Wall.
No, it pretty much hits the nail on the head. We're not trying to do any custom features. We're not looking for dungeon, looking for group, anything like that.
Yeah, I got my answer. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, it is.
What's up, nerds? So, yeah, basically, just the one question I still have over it is like, you were saying that you want to emulate a little bit like how it was in the classic kind of way, as well as how it was on Light Soap. The only thing I want to know is like during the classic time, we had the option to trade loot from raids to people that are eligible in a 2-hour window. Is that something that you maybe consider to implement?
That is. Go ahead, Will.
I was gonna say, Whitekidney discussed this the other day. It's a quality of life feature that saves GMs a lot of time on tickets. So it's something that we will consider and discuss internally. As to whether or not we have a final statement on that, that's up in the air still.
Yeah. So when it comes to like, one thing is implementing it properly so that it's not misused in any way. We did spend a lot of time on Light's Hope with misplaced loot, and that there are some quirks with the client where you, when you're a loot master, you send or click on one name and it actually sends to another. And the GMs on Light's Hope, like, in order to address that, we would have to spend some time checking the logs and checking who was actually within the raid at that time, and if they are eligible for getting that loot. Just simply introducing something like that would solve a lot of headaches, and it would be a massive quality of life change for the players, because you get to address that loot issue right away instead of having to rely on support staff like GMs, and then, you know, having to wait X amount of time, hours, perhaps even days in some cases for that to be fixed. So
yeah, I think you misunderstood my intention. Like, I understand that the GMs are very much happy with it, but I'm also more like for a loot master perspective as well, that you can at the end of a raid you can just do the entire loot that you received from a raid, not just per boss. That kind of thing.
Yeah, one possible solution to that problem might be to allow technically how we could implement this. The Wall would probably have to get back on that, but for example, if you could trade raid loot back to the loot master, for example, and only that person can then, you know, give it to the correct person or something like that. But we will have to get back to you on that. It is a massive quality of life change that reduces the workload on the GMs, as well as gives the players a much better experience.
All right, sure. Thanks. I'll look forward to the solution, if possible.
A question that I'm seeing in chat by Donald J. Trump himself. Historical rank or current rank to buy PvP gear? It will be the standard. If you hit the rank, you get to buy the gear. To use the gear, you don't need the rank. So, or at least you will only have to hit the rank once to use the gear. To purchase the gear, though, you will need the rank.
We have around 17 people asking for request.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, I was just... number one, is this being, like, recorded? Because, like, I missed the beginning of it.
Yes, we do have people recording, and we will have it hosted somewhere. I'll spam the link out tonight once that's done.
Alright, and then I was just wondering, is this going to be Black Lotus and Alterac Valley and Dire Maul?
There will be Black Lotus and Alterac Valley. Dire Maul, no.
Alright. Alright, sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, gentlemen. First of all, thank you for your time. Two quick questions. One, will mail be instant transfer either to your bank alt or anyone on your faction?
Mail to bank alts that are within the same account will be instant. Any mail sent to outside accounts will have to be addressed. We haven't discussed the time limit, but typically there is some sort of time limit sending mail between other players. It's something that we'd have to look at, though. We haven't discussed that yet. Understood.
Thank you. Secondly, once server has successfully launched, I know there's going to be a ton of back-end things, and this will not be a priority, but server events like scavenger hunts or PvP duels, 2s, 3s, etc. Will those be coordinated by staff or future staff, or is that strictly player organized?
We would rather have players just simply organize that. There obviously can be times where we do some stuff, but we're never going to have, you know, big staff run tournaments or anything like that. That should be a player job.
Understood. Go ahead.
To kind of expand on that, on Light's Hope, we actually had some player-run or community-run PvP tournaments and stuff like that, where they actually requested having access to certain functions within the game that allow them to like fly around and view battlegrounds from the air to provide a much better streaming experience. That might be something that we could accommodate for. Again, something that we probably should discuss more properly. But I think that, yeah, events like that should probably be organized by the community itself, and perhaps the project can look into how we could possibly make the experience better for players.
Yeah,
without doing a lot of custom stuff, of course.
Yeah, I guess the suggestion would be perhaps an event organizer as a staff position. It's nothing to do with Discord, just the go-to person that would be able to say, hey, you know, I want this to happen, and they'd have the resources to do so.
From a technical perspective, there's a few spells in game that were never added, but they exist client-side that are basically the Eye of Kilrog. I could always add, like, a flying feature to one of them, and then players could use that. That way there's really no possibility of abuse for, you know, eye-in-the-sky type camera work for battleground events, shit like that. So it's definitely something we can do on a technical level.
Yeah, thank you all again for being here and letting the community know what's up. Feel free to drag me.
Hey, Alex.
Your mic's currently muted.
Really?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I have a question. So Classic WoW and Light's Hope WoW were a lot different in a lot of ways. So I'll give you a couple of examples. On the boats in like Ratchet to Booty Bay, you can AoE fear people off the boat, and they will, like, you know, get off the boat in the water. In Orgrimmar, by where you get off the portal, there's spots where you can dispel people to your advantage, stuff like that. That I believe was not in Classic WoW. My point is that there's going to be some major changes that people are not familiar with or they forgot. Are you guys going to have a hands-off approach to that? Because you're going to have a lot of people making tickets complaining about certain things. What's your approach going to be to, you know, getting these flashbacks of going back to Light's Hope WoW, and they forgot about these, and they may not be the most fair stuff going on?
In regards to that, a lot of the stuff is through the core. That would be vMangos itself. Some stuff has been corrected and adjusted to be as closely replicating Classic as possible. Things like fearing off of boats still exists, but players are used to it, at least from the private server experience. So I don't think that there'd be much of an issue there.
A lot of these issues, I think you're asking if we're like in general, is that it, Alex, or do you have like specific things that you want us to address?
My question is like, would you guys have like a hands-off approach? Like, how are you going to handle? Because this is, you know, it's very. Lights Hope WoW is very similar to Classic, but there's a good amount of differences too, where people might think it's unfair and they might file a ticket, you know? So are you going to have a more hands-off approach to that, or how are you going to handle all these tickets? Because like we saw in Darrowshire with just that one guy farming the Westfall NPC, I mean, there's going to be way more situations like that. So I guess my question is, are you going to have more of a hands-off approach when it comes to players in the world, or are you going to be more strict with, you know, GM powers and stuff like that?
It is a very complicated question because there are a lot of things with Vanilla that makes it both a great game and a very bad game in many aspects. One example on Lights Hope was that we, after some time, we did implement a rule that said basically you cannot excessively kill quest NPCs or important quest NPCs like over and over again to basically deny people the ability to quest in a specific area or quest hub for like 12 hours on end. I think that we're all here because we love Vanilla, and Vanilla comes with a lot of quirks and a lot of different challenging game design that allows for very heavy griefing. Naturally, I think our first approach in a lot of these cases are going to be that we hope that the community will be able to address this, you know, using PvP and stuff like that. But there are clearly certain examples of very broken game design that we might want to address. But then again, it is very, you know, on a case-by-case basis here. Like, there's a lot of examples that we probably could bring up and discuss, but I think we would probably want to have as much of a hands-off approach as possible, because if we do decide to take a hands-on approach to a lot of these issues, that again is going to require resources and time. And that is, you know, resources and time that we could probably spend elsewhere. But then again, it is very case-specific, I feel like.
Okay. No, I was just like, for one example, I mean, you probably remember, but on Lights Hope, you know, I forgot if this was in Classic or not, but by the Orgrimmar portal, you know, someone, a dwarf priest or, you know, night elf priest, whatever, can go in the top of the huts, and there's a way to glitch out there's like some kind of like sharding mechanic where if you sit somewhere on the hut, people can't see you. And I feel like in today's world, like someone's going to complain. A lot of people are going to complain about that because they're going to get dispelled with the Worldbuffs, you know? That's just one example I have.
That's a client-side issue, unfortunately. That's anti-portal occlusion. As to why they don't appear when they're standing there, it's because they're technically outside of the WMO. That's not something that we can actually address server-side to like make them visible. We can, you know, have a game rule where you can't do it, but we'd not even rather go down that route because that's just adding more work to us. That's really, it's just part of vanilla. It's part of the private server experience. It's part of the 1.12 client particularly.
Yeah, and I think that in this specific example, if you are invisible and people cannot see you, like I've said before in other voice chat sessions, I think if you apply common sense to a lot of these examples, like if you probably shouldn't be doing it, you're probably doing something wrong. And then it is going to be impossible for us to implement rules for every specific scenario where people might get griefed in some sort of way. But if you are exploiting or abusing some bug in any way, I think you probably should not be doing it. But then again, like I said, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the in-game content that is created by the dispel groups and stuff like that. but we would advise people strongly not, please don't use exploits and stuff like that.
One quick question and I'll go. Hunter soloing tribute, yes or no? Like, is that gonna be allowed?
I think any skill-based content like that, I think that we should leave it in. And like I mentioned before, there are probably a couple of things that we might want to look into in regard to keeping the in-game economy healthy, like mage boosting and DM and stuff like that. Then again, just to be perfectly clear on this, we haven't said we're going to change anything, but we are open for discussing a lot of these clearly broken game mechanics that in many cases that is what makes vanilla, and we have to be careful not changing too much or changing the game in something in a way that people would perceive as negative or not in the vanilla spirit. But yeah, we are open for discussion on a lot of these topics, but no decision has been made, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Hello?
Hey, man.
Can we talk about cross-faction collusion and to what extent that will be an offense? For example, will it be defined or will it just be up to the individual GM? Because on Lightbringer we saw a lot of situation where each GM had different view on cross-faction collusion, and in some cases it was banned, in some other cases it was not banned.
That is very hard to answer, because I think we all can agree that collusion is detrimental and negative, like, for the game itself. The problem is actually proving that people are colluding, and that requires a lot of resources from the GMs. Like, are you gonna watch a group of people for like 1 or 2 hours? And in that case, if you do observe them, like, is that enough? It is very resource intensive, kind of investigating and following up on that, but that's not, I don't feel like that's a valid reason to say, hey, it's okay.
Yeah,
I think
example,
yeah, go ahead.
An example would be, as you said earlier, mind-controlling for VCB is allowed, but a random player might see that happening in Orgrimmar and think that they're colluding and report it, right?
Yeah, it is a very complicated question. We haven't had time to discuss this. Go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, the general idea is if you're hurting the game through collusion, then action might be taken. But if you're not doing something that's harming other players, like MCing to get the Warchiefs Blessing, like, it's not hurting anybody. Actively creating multiple action alliances is not within the spirit of vanilla, though. It's ally versus horde, so if we have 2 or 3 guilds that are just straight up colluding together between factions to lock down a region or a zone, we might address that. That's the general idea.
Alright, at what length is GBIT banned? Because you said that GBITs might be banned, but is that gold only, or is items for other items allowed? Like, for example, I give you 50 Lotus and you give me BRE. Would that be an option?
We haven't yet decided on whether to ban GDKPs completely. We do have somewhat of a unified opinion on like the spam and stuff like that it shouldn't be allowed. We might, and again, this is still up for discussion, but we might say, for example, that we disallow it initially and then perhaps get some proper tooling in place later on throughout the project to kind of allow for this to happen. One example could be that the runners would have to note down and kind of fill out like a form of who bought the items and stuff like that. But then again, it is a huge problem when it comes to RMT, and it is very resource intensive, investigating and tracking gold and stuff like that. This time around, we will have more automated tools for this process, and that is something we would have to look into throughout the lifetime of the server, developing these tools and ensuring that they work properly, and first of all, that they're actually helpful for us is a challenge. But then again, it's still up for discussion, and we would have to get back to you, like more specifically on how we intend to address that.
All right. Will the source code be open source, just like Elysium, or?
Yeah, we do
plan on. I'm sorry, I was gonna say we plan on open sourcing after the project is complete, simply for security reasons. But we will contribute back to vMangos any bug fixes that we make.
Yeah, so anything that can be upstreamed back to vMangos, we would probably upstream. But then again, there are specific changes that we are making, like to the database with values and stuff like that. Like Wolf said, we're probably going to keep that closed up until after the project has shut down, but still open for discussion on that.
Okay, and you said you were open for more Bliss-like changes that happened in Classic compared to private servers. One example would be dynamic spawns in terms of like what mob spawns. For example, in Blasterlands, you have the different animals, and on Vanilla and on Classic, it's random what spawns, right? If it's a boar or basilisk or whatever. But on private server, that was not random. Is that something possible here on this project, or is it just going to be like Northdale?
In that regard, it's probably just going to emulate Northdale for blasted land mob spawn specifically.
Yeah, but the same goes for humans, right?
Yeah, all the sniffs come from Classic that we're using as the baseline, and then changes are being made to the database to emulate Light's Hope. So, for something like that, it's probably just going to be Light's Hope standard.
Right.
Just set spawns.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I just want to thank Whitekidney, Wall, and everyone else who's a part of this project and team here, as well as everyone who's making this community well known and is sitting here. Stop telling me to say things. People DMing me right now. Hold on a minute. I have to mute this. Okay, so how's my numb right arm? I'm gonna go to the doctor after this call. So real talk here. I want to hear it from you guys. I have a couple of questions. But there's not going to be summoning stones, correct? Because that comes in Burning Crusade.
Correct. There's no summoning stones. They're not even called summoning stones. They're meeting stones, and they technically work, but not in a way that you want.
Yep. No, I hate the summoning stones. They were meeting stones in vanilla. The second question I had was the capacity. How many people are going to be able to be on at a single time?
From estimates from people that I've spoken with who are really knowledgeable about the core and essentially the optimization that's possible, 20k is a realistic upper limit. You can surpass that, but it takes a lot of scaling to do, and we just say about 20k.
Wow, cool. Okay. Now I had a question, and I don't want it to be controversial or anything like that, but there's some people that are going to be playing here that are going to deliberately spread hate speech and racial slurs. You may already be aware of the individual and their posse that I'm talking about. I just want to know how you guys are going to handle that.
We've addressed this earlier. The general rule is language in public chat channels is moderated by the GM team, and the same rules as Discord. You know, it's a common sense thing.
Awesome.
Don't be dropping the gamer word in public chat channels. You will get timed out or muted. In terms of private chat channels, we don't moderate them. The general principle is if the people that you're speaking to don't like the language and they report it, we might do something, but just don't say things like that to people who don't enjoy it in private chat channels. If you and your 5 friends want to, you know, be the way that you want to be, we're not going to stop you if it's a private chat channel.
Oh, cool. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you for the floor. You know, actually, I want to go back to what Alex and Shubble was talking about. Like how in some servers or in vanilla, some people would be thrown off of the boats with like a priest using their fear ability. You guys are just considering about changing that so they do like run around on the boat as opposed to getting flung off of it?
That's a lot of that, in particular the boat question, is part of the core and the client. It would take a lot of work to get it into a classic state, which is why it isn't in a classic state right now, and that's to do with transport spleens and how they move around the game map and calculate player position while standing on them. It's not really feasible within the scope of the project. It could be done, but it would take a lot of work, and again, partially due to the client being a hard limit on it. So you're gonna get what you had on Light's Hope in that regard.
Awesome, cool. Just want to warn all the Alliance out there, we're gonna gank you to death. So roll Horde. I want to do a shout out to Sharp Heels here of Nothing Personal. I want to shout out to Ingor, the greatest Orc Rogue there ever was on private servers. And yeah, just thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Let's have Raffle ask his question now.
Yeah, then we'll move it down.
Can't believe it took me that long to figure out how to do the wave. Actually, one quick comment too, and I messaged Zelna about this, I'm more than willing to help out with the editing to try and get the terrain in the FAQs, because the amount of people I'm seeing asking questions that you literally answered 30 minutes ago is absolutely like blowing the OCD goblins out of my brain. Moving on to my questions, two quick ones. I wanted to add on a little bit to what Alex asked, and I think this is a fantastic idea. For veteran players that know a lot of how to exploit the game, I'm not talking about coding, I'm talking about more of the social aspect, the gold making aspect. Can you potentially envelop a way for players like myself or people who've been playing this game a long time on a lot of servers to be able to provide you with potential problems before they happen, so you have a chance to think about them or develop solutions before they become a problem? You know what I mean? Because people can handle bad news, but people don't like surprises. You know, they don't want to get into an area where they've taken control of something on the server and then find out that you want to step in and stop that.
If you're talking about Ungoro collusion,
not necessarily
yeah,
on Goro. I'm saying across the board, anything.
Well, this is why we're going to have a PTR, and for stuff like that, that's obviously going to be handled on a case-by-case basis. Don't think that if you're doing something like that, don't think that you won't receive a warning first. You're not just going to be straight out banned. The GMs are going to say, hey, you need to stop doing this. It's outside the aspect of vanilla, and it's against the rules, etc. You know, that's a hard difference between stuff like botting or fly hacking, where the player knows that they're breaking the rules, just ban them. If people are colluding in a way that's negatively impacting the game, the GMs will warn you to stop, and then the onus is on you to actually stop it. If you don't, then any action that happens is basically your fault.
Again, it wasn't specific to creator. It was more of a player or server wide thing. Other question was for the PTR timeline. What is it going to be your focus, and how long do you plan on, like, let's say a level cap of 20? Do you want to do that just for 1 week, hammer everything out, and then move on? Like, what's the goal to have everything done by? Do you want to do a month's worth of PTR or 2 months?
In general, a lot of people are, I don't want to say a lot of people have mixed feelings on the length of the PTR. They want fresh is the long gist of that. But we do need to playtest things. We want to playtest the full experience 1 through 60 with players, so that they can essentially find bugs that might be existing or things that need to be addressed to revert it to more like Light's Hope experience. We want to do the PTR in 3 phases. The exact timeline is not set. In general terms, though, we're looking to playtest. That's the point of the PTR. We want to playtest the content and to test the hardware and software to make sure that it's as optimized as possible for a big population on launch. And whether or not that's going to take 2 months or 3 or even 1, it's still yet to be decided. I can say it's going to be 1 month at least of going through 1 to 60 experience. The rates will probably be accelerated for convenience of players. If we do level caps on PTR for the first month just to test the content, it'll be 30, 40, 50, 60 over the course of the month. Battle raise every week so that we can have players testing all the dungeons, all the battlegrounds, all the content in the game world, trying to get all the quests done just to make sure that everything's scripted correctly. In general, VMangos has gotten a lot of work over the past few years to where it's pretty much the best emulation you're ever going to get for vanilla. But there's still some stuff that will be incompatible if we just drop a Light's Hope database on top of VMangos, and that's why I have to do everything by hand. We want to test it, obviously.
Yeah, I think we'll move it down to the serious chat. I just want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for joining in. Naturally, we're still looking for staff members, specifically people who do art, video editing, community managers and developers are like, please, if you do feel like you have something to contribute with, please send in an application. Right now, if there are any art people in the crowd that want to contribute to the project, that would be mighty appreciated. We would like to kind of spice up the website a bit, the Discord, get a proper logo in place, things like that. So yeah, please do reach out. Thank you guys for attending. I'm just going to give you guys a warning that the special chat is going to be open for all, and there might be some trolls that appear. So my apologies for that, but we will try to address them if they do show up.